I am honored by this spot in the program and grateful for the excellent title they have given me, The Unifying Vision. Doug did indeed have a unifying vision. It was unified and boundless, a new system of working together to help us solve the urgent, complex problems of the world. Probably you don't know what Engelbart means. It's Norwegian for angel's beard. If there ever was an angelic man, it was he, full of love and full of hope and eager to fly with us all. One of the greatest men of all time. My colleague James Risberg is handing out, and there's some still out there, little cards that show Doug as an angel with wings and a halo, an actual frame from a movie taken by my late wife, Marlene. Let me reminisce for a couple of moments. Just after my first ACM presentation in 1965, where I told my vision of hypertext, a crew cut guy came up to me and asked if I'd heard of Douglas Engelbart. I didn't know it was Bob Taylor, his sponsor, but I took down Doug's name and vowed to meet him. A year later, 2 years before Doug's great demo, I managed to come west and see Doug's lab with my boss from New York, William Jovanovich. And we got our own private demo, a preview of what the world would see 2 years later in the event we're commemorating. I thought Doug was great, but I wanted to do things differently, without hierarchy. That didn't work out, but over the years I got to know him well. Doug and his wife Ballard came to my birthday party on my houseboat in 1988. They made the occasion. Cut to a decade later, his wife Ballard was gone. My mother, an actress, was also widowed at the same time. My gal Marlene and I had the wild idea of getting them together. Doug, the noble, quiet, determined visionary, and my mother, the sparkling princess. What a synergy of differences. We took Doug and my mother out together for an evening to get them acquainted, and my mother was really interested in him. He reminded her of her grandfather, the science teacher. But Doug didn't understand the dynamic, that this was a conceivably romantic introduction, and he pulled away. If only one thinks. There are so many if-onlys. But then he found wonderful Karen, who could give him her full attention. When he spoke at Oxford, he seemed unwell. I took him to the NHS. They clapped him in bed with pneumonia. I think he was in the hospital for a week, but they said he couldn't fly for 2 more weeks. Yay, he got to stay at our house for 2 weeks. It was wonderful. And I believe the NHS only billed him $1,200 for a week in the hospital. In another trip to England, according to Karen, he was so excited to be in London that he had to stay in the hotel room writing specs. I understand that. In the 2000s, after he married Karen, Marlene and I stayed often at the place in Atherton, talking with him under the ivy. Doug and I watched TV documentaries together. He was shocked at various evils of the past. Shouldn't we tell people, he would ask me. People already know, I told him. He liked my designs for parallel pages, trying to build a world that was simple but powerful. Because of his bicycle example, he was suspicious of simplicity. But he liked parallel pages when he saw them. I'm still fighting that fight. He said we should have collaborated, but when I proposed an Engelbart and Nelson computer company, he made his octopus gesture, and that was that. Marlene finally consented to marry me in time for Doug to still perform the ceremony. It's on the net. That was a sweet day. So, back to 1968 and Doug's great demo. At the time of the demo, so many parts were working, all soaring toward his unifying vision. But like Icarus, his wings melted off. After that great demo, he lost his funding, his lab, and his people, and everything went the other way. How hurt he was, how alone, with the sense of having been deserted by his sponsors and his team. His software package was sold by SRI to an aircraft company, but without community, it couldn't work as a service. Meanwhile, his former backer, Bob Taylor, became head of Xerox PARC, where they created a new world of fonts, and simple interactions on the screen. That in turn became the Macintosh, which divided the world into separate applications. Between the font pageant and separate applications, where was Doug's unifying vision? Pulled apart. Working together the Engelbart way was not going to happen with personal computers. Separated applications were the opposite of his unifying vision, and pretty fonts a mere distraction. Files and email became the only standards in the squalling marketplace of rival environments. In software politics, everyone wants to start over, yeah? We all know the feeling, even without corporate rivalries. Doug wanted the world to be a single environment where anything could be connected as people worked together. For instance, Doug had the idea of deep linking, being able to connect to any point in any file, but no applications allow it. Each application has its own cosmos and its own view, its own disunifying vision. So, could Doug's unifying vision, could any unifying vision be implemented now? We have rival systems of Windows and Mac and online services, all different and competing and incompatible, a cacophony of methods and choices, creating uncapturable trains of thought, and constant change and new look makeover to keep customers confused. To wrap it up, a man full of love and hope showed the world a unifying vision of working together, of sharing, cooperation, and understanding. Like Bucky Fuller, he thought everyone could unite for the common goal. He believed the common goal of human benefit. He believed everyone would want to work together harmoniously for the betterment of all. He did not know about organizational politics, departmental rivalries, ruthlessness. All he knew from his Navy experience was total cooperation. He was building a world where all would cooperate without competing, agreeing on objectives. Doug hoped eventually to take on all the urgent, complex problems of humanity, dealing with them in parallel he saw as the true and final challenge. Could he have done it somehow? Given us exalted, radical tools for optimization and agreement in this urgent, complex world of hurt and hatred? We'll never know, will we? But who better should have had the chance to try? The breadth of his unifying vision, was it possible? Or just a stepladder trying to reach the stars? Can the stars be reached? Today we have looked again at the stars he saw. We have come together to share that vision once more. The unifying vision that hovers over us today. And seeing it again inspires us all. Oh, one more thing. As Steve Jobs used to say. I propose that from now on and forever, December 9th be called by us all Doug Day. A day for demos, a day for showing new stuff, a day for explaining things, a day to show your relatives how to use these stupid apps. So for now and forever, December 9th, call it Doug Day. Happy Doug Day, everybody.
Boy, anybody who was foolish enough to leave early, my God. Thank you, Ted. Okay, so just a couple of moments here between now and the start of the liquidity preference function, which will be out there. I would just invite you all to reflect on one fact. The demo happened because 73 years ago, a young radar tech read an article. And think of all the other people who read it in the summer of July, August 1945, and it influenced in different ways. And Doug set out on what would become the unfinished revolution. And I've always been uncomfortable with that term because it sounds like somehow Doug failed, when in fact we all know it was unfinished because he set out to do something quite unique. He set out to set in motion a revolution that could not possibly be finished in one person's lifetime. And he did it in the urgency to meet the problems facing humanity. And Lord knows, in the interval, the problems have already grown even faster. And these days, it's very fashionable to talk about meeting grand challenges. And we've had some wonderful initiatives in that regard. But I remember, I too knew Doug, and I remember those moments where he had that wistful look on his face as people would borrow little pieces of his ideas, standing on a whale fishing for minnows. And it frustrated him so greatly. And he came up with the concept of bootstrapping, of how to accelerate out in front of the problems. There's one other dimension to Doug that I think we overlook. This age of grand challenges is, if we just do a sprint, we can meet those challenges. The problem is that sprints are not always the best way to meet challenges. Doug approached challenges in a fundamentally different way. He said, this is urgent, we must move quickly, but it is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And the one message I think from Doug that we all tend to overlook is, yes, we have to meet urgent grand challenges, but also we need more marathon thinkers. Doug was very, very rare in that regard. And if we could all think in that same way, to have the courage to start a revolution that cannot possibly be finished in our lifetime, then perhaps one day our grandchildren or our great-grandchildren will not have to set out to meet an urgent grand challenge because somebody 73 years earlier set something in motion that would save them from that crisis. So please keep that in mind.